Welcome to Hidden Horizons, a place where the most fascinating and overlooked stories from world history are gently uncovered. Here, every narrative whispers secrets of the past, inviting you to see humanity with new eyes. If you enjoy journeys into these forgotten tales and want to support more immersive explorations, please remember to like and subscribe. Your curiosity helps keep these stories alive and fuels the search for new mysteries. In this episode, we explore the cultures that chose not to follow the plough or tend to fields. While most of history celebrates agriculture as progress, we'll unravel the quiet wisdom of societies that took a different path. Step with us into a world shaped not by harvests and homesteads, but by movement, harmony, and the enduring pulse of ancient landscapes, a story both unexpected and quietly profound. Chapter 1. Whispers of an Untrodden Path. Imagine a time when the first seeds of farming began to change the world's rhythm. In distant valleys, some groups watched these fields grow and chose not to settle like others. Their hearts beat to the stir of open landscapes rather than the steady ritual of planting and harvest. This chapter invites us into that moment of decision where possibilities branch like silent trails through dawn mist. Before fields unfurled across the earth, the dreams of many people wandered freely. Some saw the settled liferich with crops and crowded villager sand gently turned away. To them, the call of the open horizon was more alluring than the promise of granaries. Shadows slipped through ancient woods, avoiding the rising walls of early towns, keeping stories alive beneath swaying boughs and starlit journeys. Oftentimes, the past is pictured as a straight path, leading from wild gathering into ordered rows of autumn wheat. But history is rarely so simple. Alongside the dawn of agriculture, there thrived cultures who valued something else, entirely balanced with the changing earth, and a rhythm that shifted with the seasons, never fixed to one plot of ground. Their wisdom shaped their world in mysterious flowing patterns. This chapter begins not in a field, but on the move, across grassy meadows, beneath drifting clouds, over mossy stones. Here, survival did not come from bending the land into furrows, but from listening carefully, to the footsteps of animals, to the secrets carried by the wind. The people you'll meet in this story found abundance in patience and adaptability, reading signs that others did not notice. What inspired these cultures to resist the draw of ploughs and plucked crops? Perhaps it was a respect for the land itself, a quiet agreement to take only what was needed and to wander on before nature tired. Their stories moved like rivers, never damming themselves in one place for too long. The landscapes they called home were shaped by footsteps, not fences, and memory echoed in the pattern of their travels. If you close your eyes, you might hear echoes of these ancient footsteps, soft as mist on grass, fleeting yet unforgotten. These societies passed down tales and skills, woven into the fabric of Earth's wild places. Their knowledge was practical and profound, guiding each journey the best hunting grounds, the quietest resting spots, the hidden springs untouched by plough or shovel. Every route held its own lesson, open to those who listened. There is a fragile balance to this way of life, a dance between movement and resourcefulness, risk and reward. Each choice carried its own weight. Would they settle for winter, or press onward into the arms of the forest? Such decisions were guided by ancient wisdom, shared around fires under limitless skies. In these moments, culture was crafted not from stone or seed, but from an understanding that to move was to thrive. As we step deeper into the world of those who refused the farmer's path, let curiosity be our guide. Their stories challenge us to see the past differently, not as a single, straight road, but as a web of choices, each shaped by dreams as vast as the wild world itself. Listen closely. In their footsteps, we may find new ways to understand humanity, and glimpses of wisdom long hidden in the morning fog. Chapter 2. The First Footprints. Long before fields were ploughed or seeds were sown, our ancestors moved through ever-shifting landscapes. Their lives flowed with the seasons, attentive to every subtle change in the wind or rustling in the grass. In these ancient days, survival meant following the rhythms of the earth itself, a dance between people and wilderness, full of mystery and astonishing adaptation. Among misty valleys and dense forests, each dawn brought new possibilities and new challenges. These early societies honed sharp eyes and careful hands, learning to read footprints in soft mud and the movements of distant herds. Their knowledge was intimate, passed in whispers around smoky fires, an ancient wisdom woven from countless footsteps over untamed ground, shaping each day's journey and every night's rest. No villages marked these first human journeys. Instead, each resting place was temporarily a clearing in the trees, a sheltered bend beside a river, or the shadow of a great stone. People made camp at dusk and left quietly by sunrise, never overstaying their welcome, always moving with quiet purpose. Their only ties were to each other and to the living land that held them. Tools were simple, yet ingenious stone blades shaped by skilled hands, baskets woven from reeds, and fire started with flint and patience. Every item was lightweight and purposeful, ready to be carried as the group wandered. These objects held stories of successful hunts, of shared hardships, and of laughter beneath starlit skies. Each tool was both art and survival, crafted from nature's gifts. Gathering food required a keen knowledge of every plant, root, and berry along the way. The ancients understood which leaves could heal, which would nourish, and which should be avoided. Their lives depended on this careful observation. Their bond with the landscape was built on trust and respect, for every tree, stream, and animal held meaning, woven into a delicate balance of give and take. Hunting was not just a means of acquiring food, it was an act of patience and deep connection. Hunters moved silently, reading the signs left by animals, attuned to invisible patterns that spoke of deer, wild birds, or tiny hares. Each successful hunt was shared with gratitude among all, and bones, hides, and sinews were used respectfully for tools and clothing, honouring the life given. There were no fences or roads to mark territory, only memory and tradition guided their paths. Families relied on stories told by elders, describing sacred rivers, safe crossings, and hidden dangers. Every journey was shaped by ancient tales and songs. These voices from the past breathed life into the landscape, turning paths and landmarks into a living map passed from one generation to the next. Weather was an unpredictable force, offering both blessings and threats. The people learned to watch shifting skies and listen for distant thunder. Sometimes, sudden storms forced them to seek shelter among rocks. Other times, gentle breezes signaled a good day for travel. This ever-changing climate demanded ingenuity and resilience, teaching early communities to adapt quickly and work together through every uncertainty. Children learned by watching and wandering, their curiosity guiding tiny feet through tall grass and shallow creeks. From a young age, they engaged with nature practicing skills, imitating elders, and growing wise beneath open skies. Play became learning, and learning became tradition. Knowledge was not written, but carried in hearts and hands, just as vital to the group as the food they gathered each day. As night gathered, stories and songs drifted into the air, echoing quietly against the darkness. Each tale celebrated survival, cleverness, and the bond between people and land. Fires flickered softly, faces glowed in their warmth, and in those quiet moments, early humans found belonging. This fleeting intimacy with nature never dominating, always moving was their greatest legacy, leaving gentle footprints across the memory of the greatest legacy, leaving gentle footprints across the memory of the earth. Chapter 3. The Turning of the Wheel. In distant valleys and along wandering rivers, a choice quietly unfolded. As some clung to their fields and planted seeds, others gazed beyond the fences. They listened to the earth breathing through the shifting winds and decided not to stay, resisting the pull towards settled life. Their stories were shaped by movement and the soft hum of seasons passing, a rhythm apart from the farmer's toil. Where the earliest farms rose, the land soon changed, once wild edges tamed by rows and furrows. The routine of planting and harvest grew strict, lives bound to the soil's demands. Yet beyond these budding villages, others watched and weighed their options. They saw not progress, but compromised the freedom to follow the herds and shifting rivers slipping away with every newly turned field, every fence hammered into wild earth. For some, the cycle of sowing and reaping felt like a trap rather than a promise. They understood that crops brought security, but also hardship or harvests and hunger came with a single harsh season. To them, the world's abundance was already spread before them. Nature's gifts, unpredictable yet constant, offered sustenance and challenge in equal measure. These wanderers trusted the land's rhythms and their own memory of the ancient paths. As fields multiplied, Other societies embraced lives shaped by motion and choice. They knew the language of rivers in flood and meadows in bloom, tracking migrations across wild terrain. Their homes were stitched together with reed and hide, easily packed to journey toward new abundance. Living in step with the untamed world, they saw stability not in rooted permanence, but in their will to adapt and move as the earth itself changed. The divide grew clearer with each turning season. Settlers tended their crops, braving drought and pests. Nomads gathered at the edge of the clearing, watching rows of grain rise and fall. At night, they shared stories around their fires, whispering of ancestors who had never needed fences. Their wisdom was measured in distance, memory, and the courage to depart when the world whispered its ancient invitation to wander once more. Why refuse the plough? For some, freedom was the most precious crop. They feared the hardships that settled life would bring: hunger if the rains failed, conflict for land, long hours bent over stubborn earth. Instead, they chose risk and reward woven through the landscape, a gift that was never guaranteed but never owned. This conscious choice shaped their identity as much as any tool or dwelling, marking them as keepers of another kind of knowledge. To remain mobile was also to stay close to the world's untouched beauty. These people followed the faintest tracks and shifting seasons, gathering what nature offered. Their homes rose and fell like tents against the sky, leaving behind gentle traces. Even as they visited the growing villages, many returned to the wild, drawn by the open horizon. Their lives held a harmonia, quiet understanding of how to belong to many places, and none at all. The farmers and wanderers exchanged gifts and news, but differences deepened. While one group harvested from controlled fields, the other found abundance in wild fruit and wandering elk. The knowledge of roots and healing plants passed through generations, guiding journeys through forests and plain. Their calendars were written in stars and rivers, not in seeds or storehouses. By walking rather than sowing, they became part of the land's ancient, ongoing story. In the world's hidden corners, echoes of these early choices remain. Rock carvings, worn trails, and ancient camps tell of a life designed around movement. Here, the quiet decision to avoid the farmer's life shaped generations. These societies watched crops change human fate from a distance, holding to their own path not of refusal, but of reverence, trust in what the earth would provide, and the wisdom to move on when the time demanded. So the wheel turned, sometimes spinning forward, sometimes circling back. While farming grew powerful, the wanderers' footprints pressed softly into history. They kept alive a different vision of how to live, not just to survive, but to remain in balance with the land's gifts. In choosing to walk, not settle, they carved their own quiet legacy into the tapestry of human history, forever bound to the wind and to the tapestry of human history, forever bound to the wind and to the turning seasons. Chapter 4. Harmony with the land. Across silent valleys and over windswept plains, these cultures moved in rhythm with nature's quiet cycles. Their days began under wide sky canopies, with every movement guided by the earth's subtle signs. Each sunrise brought a reminder of their purpose, to live not as conquerors but as careful companions of their environment. Here, balance was a way of life, never a choice but a promise kept. Centuries of careful observation turned into wisdom, passed quietly from elder to child. In hushed voices beside flickering fires, stories revealed which berries offered nourishment and when the herds would begin their migrations. Seasonal winds carried more than scents. They signaled changes in the world's grand pattern. In listening, these people learned to anticipate, to move, to gather only what was essential and always return thanks. The intimate knowledge of edible plants was not merely practical, but sacred. A single leaf or root pointed to the careful studies of ancestors, each discovery woven into memory songs. When a child knelt to gather wild celery, gentle hands guided theirs, reminding them to take only a little, to never rob the earth of recovery. Patience and restraint became their tools, wielded quietly, generation after generation. Not all teachings came from people. The animals themselves were wise tutors. Watching for tracks at river crossings taught the rhythms of elk and caribou migrations. A sudden quiet fell over the forest, and all understood it was time to let the land rest. To the people who refused to farm, following in the footsteps of animals was an elaborate dance, each step fulfilling an unspoken agreement with the wild. Their relationship with the seasons became an unbroken conversation. A shift in birdsong at dawn meant spring was approaching. The slow gold of autumn leaves signalled preparation and pause. Winter's hush was not a hardship, but a sacred season of storytelling, where families pressed close to the fire and elders reminded them how every frost and thaw shaped their path. This awareness was their deepest form of guidance. Harmony was not achieved by accident. Tools carved from bone and wood were shaped only as needed, never more than the land could bear. When shelters were built, they bowed beneath the trees, blending into the valleys and hillsides. Every movement within their camps was a soft affirmation that nature's abundance was a delicate gift. Waste was regretted, and gratitude was instilled with every task undertaken. Among these people, sustainability echoed in farming's absence. They believed altering the land for crops would threaten its spirit, casting imbalance into the natural order. Instead, their lives became an ever-changing mosaic, adaptable and open to nature's shifting designs. No field was claimed, no river possessed. Their freedom to roam was rooted in a promise, to leave each place as whole as they found it. Elders often guided communities through their decisions. If a hunting ground looked tired, the group would move on, trusting that patience would let nature renew. Wisdom was not about mastering the world, but understanding when to step back, when to quietly observe. This humility shaped every gathering, every migration, every restful pause beneath midnight skies that stretched endlessly overhead. To them, harmony meant seeing themselves not as owners, but as caretakers. Memories accumulated along river bends and beneath ancient trees, marked by respectful visits and gentle leave-takings. Even in moments of celebration, gratitude was given to land and water, to every living thing that made the journey possible. Over time, this respect grew roots as deep as the forests they wandered. So, the story of those who chose not to farm is a story of understanding rather than control, a tale written softly upon the land instead of carved into it. Through careful observation and reverence, they protected the fragile balance of their world. Their legacy endures, whispering through wind and leaf, inviting us to also listen, to witness, and to find our own harmony with the places we call home. Chapter 5. The Gifts of Mobility. In the ebb and flow of nomadic life, movement was not a challenge but a treasure. For those who roamed the land, flexibility meant survival. Rather than binding themselves to one piece of earth, these societies danced with the seasons and the wild. Where others waited for rains or crops, the nomads watched the horizon, adjusting their paths to whatever the land would offer. As wanderers, these societies enjoyed a life that adapted quickly to change. The unpredictability of weather or landscape brought few fears, for mobility itself was their safeguard. No failed harvest could pin them in place. Instead, their way of life gave the freedom to leave troubles behind and seek abundance elsewhere, showing an adaptability that set them apart from their farming neighbours. Among the most remarkable gifts of a mobile existence was resilience to disease. Unlike crowded settlements where sickness could spread unseen and quickly, nomadic groups rarely stayed long in one spot. This constant movement offered a natural shield, reducing the chances of infection taking hold and helping these societies remain healthier in the face of nature's challenges. Mobility also came with less reliance on a single food source. When crops failed in distant villages, nomadic families could turn to wild game, fish, or seeds found along new routes. This diversity in diet protected against famine, making the journey itself a living pantry, rich with opportunity and invention shaped by the endless variety of the land. Stories passed down through generations tell of clever ways to make use of what the earth provided. One group followed the migration of caribou, reading the faintest tracks in snow, while another mastered the rivers, fishing by moonlight. Each movement, each choice, held a lesson in flexibility and a quiet understanding of the world's rhythms. To outsiders, nomadic life might have seemed precarious, even unstable. But within these communities there was security born from knowledge, knowing where to find water in spring, sensing when storms would come, or recognizing how landscapes shift over time. This wisdom, gathered from centuries of movement, became a reliable guide through uncertainty. Freedom from crops meant freedom from worry. There were no seasons of desperation when harvests failed, no anxieties about fields turning to dust. With packs light and hearts attentive to change, nomads could outmaneuver hardship, their lives woven around resourcefulness and trust in their own ability to answer whatever the world required of them. Instead of walls and fences, boundaries in these societies were drawn by memory and tradition. Sacred meeting places on the plains, secret springs in deep forests, and open campfires under vast skies served as landmarks. These spaces were shared and cherished, a reminder that home was not a single place, but a feeling carried in stories and song. The ingenuity embedded in these lifeways surfaces in their tools and crafts. Lightweight shelters designed to rise and fall with the wind, woven baskets strong enough for journeys, and songs that mapped the stars. Through these creations, nomads encoded movement and memory, leaving behind invisible threads that tied them together, even as they wandered apart. Ultimately, the gifts of mobility brought more than mere survival. They fostered a quiet pride of resilience shaped by experience, ingenuity born from necessity, and freedom crafted in harmony with the land. In choosing movement over settlement, these societies wrote their own stories of strength, offering a glimpse into a world where every journey becomes both a challenge and a celebration of life itself. Chapter 6. Tools of the Wanderers. Among those who chose the path of movement rather than cultivation, necessity inspired ingenious inventions. Each tool carried in their packs was a testament to adaptability, to making life possible in ever-changing terrain. In this chapter, we trace how these lightweight shelters, portable hearths, and resourceful utensils came to be, each one shaped by the wisdom of many generations on the move. Every object kept by a wanderer served more than one purpose. A single blade could prepare food, build a shelter, or serve as protection. The versatility of these tools was crucial. They were designed to minimize burden while maximizing opportunity. Imagine a world where innovation meant survival, and each item was endlessly valued, repaired, and passed down. Survival and tradition walked hand in hand, mapping a subtle story through every possession. Shelters for the nomads were made to rise and fall with the sun. Lightweight and simple to assemble, these tents woven from animal hides or grasses became home wherever they were pitched. Designed to weather storms or offer shade from relentless heat, each structure blended with the land. Packing and unpacking with practiced efficiency, wanderers learned to carry comfort with them, never bound but always prepared, letting the land dictate the shape of their living spaces. The wanderers became masters of resourcefulness. They crafted containers from gourds and leathers, designed to hold precious water or gathered fruits. These vessels were light enough for long treks across arid plains, sealed tightly to preserve every drop. Clever designs for food preservation like sun-drying or slow-smoking extended natures, bounty for leaner times. Techniques honed over generations meant meals could be carried over distances, keeping spirits strong and bodies nourished. The fire-making kits of the wanderers reveal a legacy of ingenuity. With flint, tinder fungus, and dry grass bundled together, a spark meant warmth, cooked food, and safety after dark. These portable hearths were often the heart of the camp, simple, efficient, and revered. Learning to coax flames from the faintest spark became a rite of passage, a moment when a child's hands turned skill into survival. Fire's glow became both a tool and a companion through the unknown. Clothing itself was an ancient technology. Stitched from hides or woven from plant fibers, garments were made to endure long journeys and changing elements. Every stitch held knowledge how to repel rain, block wind, or offer shade. Pockets and loops let tools hang at the ready. Clothing became a mark of identity, heritage, but most of all practical wisdom worn close. In the quiet of twilight, mending was a ritual, honouring both the maker and the journey. The wanderers' tools were not just possessions, but extensions of themselves. With each migration, skills were shared and sharpened. How to sharpen a blade, repair a shelter, or track the course of a river by the stars. Storytelling became a way to preserve and pass on these technologies. Around the campfire, tales recalled old inventors, those who first twisted rope from grass or shaped bone into fishhooks, keeping practical mystery alive in spoken word. Adaptation was at the core of every wandering culture. When seasons changed, tools evolved. Winter cloaks were layered, baskets lined for snow, and sledges replaced walking poles. Observing animals and the landscape, wanderers borrowed strategies from nature. Flexibility was their greatest asset, allowing them to meet new challenges with clever hands and open minds. Each adaptation was not just survival, but an ongoing dialogue with the places they called. Among the most treasured items were multifaceted implements knives, with bone handles, awls sharpened from antler, needles fashioned from fishbone. Each was small enough to fit in a pouch, but powerful enough to shape a life. The ability to repair a garment, carve a spoon, or make a defensive point brought security. These tools carried memory etched with decoration or wrapped in coloured thread, marking stories and places now distant but not forgotten. This chapter is a tribute to the silent genius of those who refused to settle in one place. Each tool tells of a different way to live, not by building kingdoms from stone, but by weaving existence from what could be carried, fixed, shared, and remembered. In every lightweight shelter, ingenious utensil, and clever bundle lies the secret of cultures who loved freedom. Above all, shaping their legacy along the winding paths of the world. Shaping their legacy along the winding paths of the world. Chapter 7. Dance of Seasons. As the wheel of the year turns, these societies move in harmony with the land. They follow the great migrations of animals, their steps light upon ancient trails known to generations past. As herds graze and move on, families gather their belongings, their senses attuned to nature's clues. Every journey is a renewal, each footprint a quiet promise to return when the world invites them again. When the first green shoots break through thawed soil, excitement stirs. Wild plants blossom in meadows, forests, and riverbanks, quietly announcing new food and medicines. People travel to known gathering grounds, hands skilled at finding roots and berries. There are old songs sung as baskets fill and laughter drifts through leafy canopies. The blossoming season is a celebration, honouring a wisdom that can read the secret language of each flowering plant. With summer's warmth, rivers swell and animals pause in their wanderings. The communities rest, relishing the bounty of long golden days. Children learn from their elders, following in their shadow as they collect wild seeds and fruits. Games and storytelling fill dusky evenings, where the crackle of fire makes shadows dance. Knowledge flows from one generation to another, keeping sacred the rituals that ensure survival during leaner days ahead. As autumn chills the air, harvests quietly shift. People know where to find acorns, roots, and starchy bulbs hidden beneath the earth. There is gratitude for the earth's quiet generosity. Animals, too, are on the move, flocks of birds taking wing across fading skies. Communities join together, sharing what has been gathered. Meals are prepared for festive gatherings, and stories woven in the cool dusk bind hearts to ancestors gone before. The arrival of winter is not met with fear, but with respect and preparation. Shelters are strengthened, furs drawn close. Fires are coaxed into steady warmth, while dried meats and roots sustain all. The world outside is hushed, yet the spirit of the people is lively, filled with songs and dreams carried on the smoke. The season is not idleness, but deep reflection and patient storytelling, each voice echoing memory through the long night. Annual gatherings are the heartbeat of the year. Scattered families reunite at special playstone circles, river bends, or whispering groves. Old friends are welcomed with laughing embraces, new friendships woven beneath starlit skies. Here, knowledge and tradition are exchanged through dances, ritual games, and communal feasts. These gatherings strengthen bonds beyond kin, reminding everyone that while seasons change, the heart of the community endures. Every season's shift is an invitation to observe. Tracks in mud, the call of birds, the scent of rain each offers guidance. People walk with patience, recognizing the signs and rhythms written in tree bark and insect song. They have learned the value of moving gently, taking only what is needed. From child to elder, this awareness shapes each decision, weaving physical survival with a deeper spiritual harmony with the world. Such cycles are sacred. Rituals mark each turning of first flower plucked, a hunt successfully shared, the last leaf fallen. Songs and dances are offered to thank the land, ensuring balance and renewal. Even sorrow when storms or scarcity threaten is held quietly within these traditions, met not as misfortune but as a lesson in humility. Over centuries, resilience grows like moss on stone, slow and sure. There is a gentle magic in the repetition of these cycles. With each year, families see changes as signs, not endings. A new patch of berries, an ancient tree struck by lightning, A river carving a new beach transformation is observed, understood, and respected. Stories are told by moonlight, teaching the youngest that the dance of seasons is both ancient and always new, a spiral of memory and promise. In the end, the dance of seasons shapes lives as surely as any tool or shelter. These societies, choosing not to farm, find strength and comfort in patterns written by sun, rain, and wind. Theirs is a legacy of patience, observation, and gratitude. Through celebration and survival, their communities flourish rooted not in fields of grain, but in the wild, living heart of nature, where every season is both challenge and gift. Chapter 8. Gathering at the Hearth. In the heart of the community, a gentle glow radiates from the hearth. Here, people gather, drawn by its warmth and ancient promise of togetherness. Shadows dance softly upon earth, walls, while quiet voices begin to ripple through the air. At this age-old focal point, generations meet, and the boundaries of time seem to blur, bridging the gap between past wisdom and present curiosity. The hearth is more than just a source of heat. It is where the fabric of memory is woven by quiet hands and thoughtful voices. Elders lean forward to share tales carried from far-off camps and vanished seasons. Children listen intently, eyes wide with wonder, as stories grow and unfold. The calm repetition of words becomes a melody, echoing in the minds of all who gather close to its gentle fire. Oral tradition lives at the centre of this society. Far from stone tablets or inked scrolls, stories and lessons pass from mouth to ear, preserved like embers held in careful hands. By the hearth's light, memories transform into living, breathing narratives. Wisdom heard, won through generations, travels effortlessly through the spoken word, allowing each member to carry a piece of their people's shared past into the uncertain dawn. As the night stretches long and the flames soften, the story circle grows tighter. Every retelling molds the tale to fit the listener, adapting to new fears and changing hopes. Myths of the wild, lessons of respect for land and kin, and reminders of times when choices altered destiny are spoken quietly, punctuated by the comforting crackle of fire. In these moments, history becomes nourishment, feeding hearts as much as bodies. Memory in these societies is not stored in ink or stone, but within the hearts of the living. Even small details, names of rivers, patterns of stars, ways to heal or survive, are regarded with reverence and passed along during the gatherings at the hearth. A child's laughter, an elder's gentle correction, and whispered reminders shape the collective consciousness, keeping ancestors' legacies alive with every evening spent in shared reflection. The atmosphere around the hearth is gentle and rhythmic. Stories spill out in calm, melodic words, inviting everyone to listen, remember, and feel. The flickering fire reflects in thoughtful eyes as listeners travel to ages past, where hunters faced storms and peaceful nights were celebrated. The hearth is both anchor and compass, grounding the people while giving their stories wings, guiding them softly into tomorrow. To those gathered, the act of storytelling is sacred. Each voice is valued, each story a thread in the ever-expanding tapestry of memory. Disagreements dissolve as the narrative passes between speakers, binding the group in understanding. The oral tradition isn't just about the past, it is a living bridge connecting generations, sparking empathy, curiosity, and gratitude for the ancestors who once gathered in much the same way. As dawn approaches and tired eyes begin to close, the final stories are shared in hushed, reflective tones. The fire dwindles, smoke curling slowly into the cool morning air. Yet nothing is truly lost. Tales told at the hearth will linger, carried in the minds and hearts of those who listened. The memory of warmth and words becomes part of each person, ready to be kindled again when next they gather. The importance of oral tradition cannot be understated within these societies. It shapes identities, guides choices, and preserves the lessons that farming could not plant in soil or harvest with tools. Here, knowledge is alive, frail perhaps, but kept safe through ritual, trust, and repetition. It is a quiet form of resistance against forgetting, an enduring way to keep their culture thriving as the world subtly shifts around them. And so, with embers glowing low, the hearth stands as a silent witness to generations. The cycle will continue, future storytellers will take their place, and new tales will be spun under the watchful eyes of both ancestors and stars. In each gathering, the stories grow layered and luminous, whispering reminders of who they were and who they choose to become as they move gently through the great unfolding mystery of time. Chapter 9. The Call of the Unknown. There was a restless spirit that swept through these ancient cultures, a pull that whispered of distant lands just beyond sight. Unlike others who built villages and fields, they listened to the horizon's voice. The unknown was not something to be conquered, but to be embraced. Every morning brought a new chance to answer the call, their hearts tuned to the mysteries waiting just out of reach. It was not a lack of knowledge or will that guided their steps, but a choice deliberate and lasting. Their way of life thrived on movement, on the unending search for what lay beyond familiar valleys. This curiosity was woven into their stories and songs. When dusk fell, they gathered around quiet fires, sharing tales not of growing roots but of winds that beckoned them onward, deeper into the wild and unknown. The horizon was a companion, its line shifting with every step toward it. For these people, the world was alive with promise and deeper meaning. They saw rivers and mountains not as barriers but invitations. The unknown sparked their imagination and their sense of purpose. Their eyes searched the distance, read the sky's subtle signs, and wondered what secrets the land held a journey of spirit as much as of foot. As seasons changed, so too did their pathways always, in response to the world's own rhythms. There was wisdom in this wandering, a trust that the land would provide if they listened closely. Settling down, to them, meant silencing the song of the horizon. So, generation after generation, they answered its call, their lives woven around movement and the endless embrace of possibility. Some may have asked why they did not stay, why they left behind places rich with memory. For them, the question was backward. Why stop when the world continued to offer wonders? The act of journeying itself became their tradition. Restlessness was not a flaw, but a form of devotion, a way to honour the mysteries that hovered just out of sight, always calling, always drawing them onward. This yearning was not aimless. Each venture into new territory was made with care and awareness. They mapped the world with their feet and their stories, leaving behind knowledge for those who followed. The echo of mysteries unravelling with every journey gave a deeper texture to their days. They welcomed uncertainty, knowing that discovery was hidden not just in the destination, but in every step along the way. Moonlit nights on open plains, with stars scattered wide above, made them feel small but connected to something vast. The unknown was never lonely. Instead, it folded them into its broad embrace. Resting beneath the sky, surrounded by the soft hush of grass and wind, they would listen for what might come next. The future was a tapestry slowly unfurled, and each expedition was a single glimmering thread. Sometimes the world answered back with beauty, the sudden appearance of a hidden valley, the sparkle of a spring at dawn. Other times there were challenger storms, hunger and cold. But these moments were folded into the story, not as regrets, but as reminders of the bond between explorer and land. Every hardship became a shared memory, another reason to keep moving forward together. Children grew up listening to tales of places glimpsed but never settled. These stories were their inheritance, carried in memory rather than in stone. Each generation added to the lore, dreaming not of places to claim, but of endless wonders yet to be found. Their legacy was not the mark left upon the earth, but the unbroken thread of curiosity that guided each step, always reaching for the unknown. Thus the culture endured, not in walls or harvests, but in the spirit of exploration itself. The horizon called, and they answered, again and again. To them, movement was meaning, and life was richest at the edge of certainty. Even as time passed and the world changed around them, the call of the unknown was never silenced, always a quiet invitation to wander just a little bit farther. Chapter 10. Encounters and Edges. Along the shifting borders between fields and forests, something remarkable took place. Farming communities, rooted in their seasonal cycles, met those who travelled lightly across the land, unbound by harvest or homestead. These interactions were not always peaceful, nor wholly hostile. With each meeting, expectations were challenged, and the possibility of exchange flickered like a campfire in the night. Two worlds, guided by different priorities, found moments of contact on winding trails and riverbanks. Farmers, with baskets of grain and woven goods, encountered nomadic groups whose lives moved with migrating herds and wild harvests. Sometimes these meetings led to trade, obsidian tools exchanged for salted fish or pottery for smoked meat. In small gestures and shared glances, trust or suspicion quietly grew, shaping their destinies in subtle ways. Edges between these societies were zones of both opportunity and tension. The flow of ideas didn't always come with open hands. Fences, whether made of wood or wary glances, marked the uncertain ground where crops ended and the unknown began. At times, misunderstandings brewed as fast as any summer storm. Old stories recall moments when patience or caution saved the day, and when pride or fear deepened the divide. Yet even in rivalry, each side observed and learned. Nomads watched the slow rhythm of planting and wondered at the patience it required. Farmers studied the resourcefulness of their guests, learning new ways to craft tools or find water when rivers ran low. These glimpses across the edge curiosity peeking through skepticism inspired small shifts that quietly changed both worlds over generations. Some of these encounters became legends, whispered around fires or sung in twilight. A travelling hunter gifting rare herbs in exchange for bread, a weaver sharing patterns with a passing stranger. Such moments lingered long after footsteps faded. They became part of the landscape, reminders that even societies as different as sun and shade could sometimes meet on common ground, if only for a while. But not all meetings were gentle. Raids sometimes shattered peaceful dawns, as hungry winters or failed crops drove groups to take from one another. Memories of loss lingered like shadows fueling suspicion when new faces appeared at the edge of a field or trailing smoke signaled a moving camp nearby. Even so, necessity could turn rivals into uneasy partners, pushing both sides to navigate the delicate dance of coexistence. Over time, the movement of goods obsidian, furs, tools end, the silent flow of knowledge shaped the borderlands themselves. Travellers told stories about distant places and odd customs, seeding curiosity. Eventually, some boundary dwellers adopted new foods or crafts, blending traditions in ways neither the farmers nor the wanderers would have imagined. Change, subtle but steady, planted roots in the in-between. Through each generation, elders recounted tales of early meetings, some tragic, others transformative. A shared meal by a river, the healing of an injured child, or the teaching of songs. Memories like these softened hardened opinions. Gradually, the edge between farming and roaming grew less like a sharp line and more like a place of possibility, where new ways of life could quietly take root. Still, many chose to remain apart. For some, the deep sense of kinship with their chosen life as tillers of fields or keepers of the wild was a boundary not easily crossed. Encounters left lasting impressions but rarely changed the heart of who they were. Moving forward, each side carried memories of these meetings, woven into their understanding of the world and whispered among their own people by the evening light. The chapter of encounters and edges reminds us that the space between worlds is never truly empty. Here, suspicion and hope flicker together, and even the faintest conversation or passing glance can ripple outward in time. As the night deepens, we reflect on these ancient borderland seeing, in the echoes of our own moments of meeting and parting, possibility and restraint, across the long twilight of history. Chapter 11. The Quiet Fade. The world begins to change, gently but irresistibly. Farming, with its promise of stability and abundance, spreads across rolling valleys and forest edges. Nomadic paths grow faint as meadows become fields. The cultures who once roamed wide landscapes sense their world is shifting. It is not sudden, their retreat is a slow, quiet unfolding, as the familiar patterns of movement give way to the new rhythm of settled life, give way to the new rhythm of settled grasslands that once echoed with soft footsteps gradually fall silent. In the hush, traces remain, the curve of a forgotten trail, a scatter of ancient stones by a river. Nature begins to reclaim what was left behind, but not all is lost. The stories of these people linger in the land itself carried on the wind, tucked between roots, waiting for a careful eye to notice, or a quiet moment to remember. The arrival of fields and farms shapes everything. Hills once untouched by the plough yield to straight rows and furrowed earth. The wild abundance thins, the gathering grounds now fenced and planted. The old ways are not erased in a single season, they disappear gently, blending with the dawn mist. Ghosts of campfires, faint shadows in the morning light, suggest lives once lived close to the breathing earth. Villages grow where seasonal camps once stood. The streamside clearings where travellers paused become permanent homes. Yet, in these places, the spirit of the wanderers endures. A curve in the path, an old song hummed at dusk, a story passed down from elders. The landscapes hold these memories softly, waiting beneath layers of new life, whispering to those who still listen for what came before. Quietly, cultures that once flowed with the rhythm of herds and seasons begin to fade, but their way of seeing, their deep listening to the land, endures among the trees and stones. Sometimes, a tool emerges from the soil, smooth from many hands. Here and there, a pattern in the earth hints at shelters long vanished. Each discovery is a small voice from the past, echoing gently in the present. The people who refused to farm did so not out of ignorance, but choice, a different vision for living alongside the land. As time moves on, their wisdom is not entirely forgotten. It lives in the edges-old tracks through grassy meadows, secret fishing spots hidden from view. The world may have shifted, but the pulse of these ancient lives can sometimes still be felt if you know where and how to look. Stories drift across generations like rivers. Even as old ways slip beneath the surface, echoes remain, fireside tales of migrations and wild harvests, memories woven into lullabies. The past is never far away, it lingers, cool and quiet, just beneath everyday life. Each landscape contains layers of memory, and though much is unseen, the patient listener finds traces of what was once cherished and profound. The end of one chapter does not erase its meaning. The persistence of these cultures exists not only in artifacts, but in the relationship they had with the living world, the gentle footsteps, the knowledge of sky and season, the gratitude for every shared meal. Their presence remains in the ancient silence between stones, a comfort for those who pause, listen, and allow themselves to imagine all that once was. In time, new stories rise, those of farming families, of growing towns and lasting walls. Yet underneath, the land remembers all who came before. The cycle of fading and renewal is part of the world's quiet balance. As fields bloom and villages thrive, a peace settles not only over what is new, but over what came before. The landscapes of today are richer for holding these gentle shadows. So as we near the end of this story, remember that to observe the land is to witness many lives layered together. The quiet fade of these cultures was not just an ending, but a transformation. If you walk softly, ask questions, and listen with care, you may still sense their presence drifting in the mist, echoing through old stones and waiting to be found in the hidden corners of our shared world. Chapter 12. Echoes Across the Horizon. As our journey reaches its conclusion, we pause to reflect on the crossroads faced by early people. The choice between settling down to farm or continuing a life on the move shaped the very fabric of our civilization. Now, we listen to the subtle echoes of that ancient decision, and the quiet ways it still touches our lives today. Imagine standing on a vast plain at sunset, the world hushed except for the shifting winds and distant calls of wild birds. In this space between what was and what could have been, we contemplate what was gained through fields of grain, and what was left behind with every step away from the endless horizon. These echoes linger in the land and in our hearts, asking silent questions as twilight deepens. With agriculture, communities grew roots deep in the earth. Villages blossomed, homes clustered together, and memories settled like seeds carried by the wind. But in turning fields with ploughs, what connections did we lose to the seasons, the stars, and the path beneath our wandering feet? Human hands reshaped landscapes, yet something ancient slipped quietly away, like mist at dawn. The story of those who chose movement-tracking herds across valleys and gathering wild harvests whispers to us even now. Their knowledge of the land was intimate, a dialogue with each shadow and bloom. Perhaps their days moved slower, marked by rivers and animal tracks rather than the steady rhythm of seasons spent planting and reaping. That freedom left traces we sometimes still sense in our dreams. In exchange for harvests and hearths, people surrendered the uncertainty and exhilaration of the journey. The predictability of crops brought security and surplus, but also a new dependence on weather and soil. The delicate balance between taking from the earth and giving back was altered forever, setting humanity on a course toward mastery and vulnerability within its own creations. As we gaze back across centuries, we see two worlds diverging, one of fields, walls, and permanence, and another of open trails, changing camps, and stories carried by word of mouth. To embrace one world was not to erase the other entirely, but to let it become a memory, a song faintly sung by the wind across empty hills, Both choices carried wisdom and sorrow in equal measure. Let us imagine, just for a moment, if humanity had continued along the untamed paths, refusing the lure of the plough. Would our lives be guided by the migrations of animals, the opening of wild blooms, and the paths of rivers? Might our stories hold closer to silence and stillness, woven from the longing for horizons never reached, shaped by movement, not the marking of boundaries? The earth itself might look differenter. Tapestry less carved by tools and more painted by the passing of feet and the gentle touch of wind. Perhaps forests would stretch unbroken, and rivers would wander freely, following their ancient courses. The world would be less ordered, but richer in the unpredictable variety that comes with wildness, with mystery preserved in every shadowed valley. Yet, as we reflect on what might have been, we find meaning in the journey we did take. Settled life brought art, writing, music, and new forms of connection ways to hold on to each other across generations. Even now, echoes of those who walked a different path stir within us. Their lessons linger, reminding us that the story of humanity is never finished, it's always unfolding. As dusk gathers, we invite you to carry these echoes forward, to walk with curiosity and care, honouring both the rooted and the restless within. Through reflection, we can bridge the worlds we chose and those we left behind, learning always from the crossroads where their shadows meet. Thank you for journeying with us into the mist of forgotten histories, and for listening to the silence between each echo across the horizon.